All right, last game in the 4 o'clock window. Cincinnati Bengals at the Kansas City Chiefs. Chiefs favored by 7. Chiefs sitting here at 9-6, of course. Worst Patrick Mahomes team that we've seen, and the worst game for Mahomes the other day. A lot of things not going well for that Kansas City offense, but again, the defense has played really well. And the thing that could get the Chiefs offense right here, Bengals defense, Chargers defense, to finish the season. They do play two of the bottom 5 teams in EPA per play allowed, 2 of the worst defenses, pass defenses in the NFL. Maybe this is the thing that gets Kansas City back on track heading into the playoffs.
Yes, you got 2 elements of this game, right? Does Jake Browning go back to the player he was where he was looking really good for a few weeks? Or is he the player he was against Pittsburgh 2 weeks in either end of this run of his? Kansas City is a really good defense. That's one thing that isn't being talked about enough this season, I think, because all the focus is on the struggles on the offense and why they can't get out of their own way and can't stop making mistakes, and is Taylor Swift a curse? Their defense is awesome this year. It really is good. And so it's a really tough challenge for Jake Browning to try and bounce back against. And then obviously the other side of the ball, it's been the same story all season long with Kansas City. The only new element to it is, for the first time, really, Mahomes added to the problems. Like all season long, it's been Mahomes trying his best to drag mistake-ridden offensive playmakers to wins. And then last week, he started making mistakes as well. Now, was that just one game where everyone has them? Every single player has a game where they stink randomly. Was that his this year? Or has something snapped and he's now just been they have dragged Mahomes down to the level they've been at all season long, and he's now part of the problem as well?
I'm still of the belief with the elite quarterbacks, and I think there's been 5 over the last 20 years. And I always cite them. It's, Brady, Manning, Rodgers, Breeze, and Mahomes. The guys that are at a different level. And I honestly don't think there's a strategy to stop those guys. Like, I don't think there's a specific game plan where you say, this will attack their weaknesses. We got them. I think it's almost always self-inflicted, or there's other stuff, or it's the team is falling apart around them, and it's making them play differently, right? So with Rodgers, I said a couple hours ago on the show, there were points where Rodgers was less productive in his career because he wasn't playing within structure. For whatever reason, wasn't trusting the offense, his receivers, was just in a slump, right? Brady had down years when the receiving talent wasn't as good. Mahomes, it feels like, I don't think there's a strategy to stop him necessarily. But now that you have maybe backup left tackle, he's seeing the rush a little bit more, and weeks of frustration built up to the point where he's not playing within structure. And it's not the only time where he's had a slump in his career, like a mini slump production-wise. 2021, the whole too high narrative, and they're taking away the deep ball, and I'm not playing patient. We were saying a lot of the same stuff, right? He's trying to break the pocket too much. He's trying to play outside of structure. He's not taking the easy stuff when it's there. And then they adjusted. They did well with that last year. And now he's back in this, he's not playing within structure. It's because it's not like they don't have open receivers. They have open receivers. They always scheme up open receivers in Kansas City. That's always there. This year, they're not catching the ball effectively when they're open or at key times in the game. So all that stuff was adding up. And so, I think Mahomes will break out of it at some point. I think the offense will break out of it. I don't know if it's this year.
Right.
But I do think the biggest thing is, this offseason, Kansas City is attacking the receiver room with, vigor.
They're going to do the same thing they did with the offensive line, but at receiver this time.
Now, they're probably a little bit more hamstrung by Cap and Mahomes' contract than they were 2 years ago doing that. But that's what the result's going to be. So I think they'll get out of it. I think Mahomes will get out of it. But, when you talk about greatness, he's a great player. Greatness is not about being the best at every single point in every single checkpoint in your career. It's always about ebbs and flows and adjusting and bouncing back, and that's where we are with Kansas City right now. I think they'll bounce back, and I think they'll do it against a bad Kansas City defense. And what you said, Kansas City's defense, they deserve a ton of credit. They haven't been great against the run, and I do think that is the one place where you can get them. And if the Bengals get a lead, Kansas City hasn't made their special comebacks, in part because Mahomes and the offense, but also because the defense has not stopped opposing running games when they've needed to, including last week.
Yeah, I think everything that's happening to Mahomes this season with the Chiefs' offensive playmakers letting him down, I think this is all playing into the area of his game that I think has been the weakest for his NFL career. Like, if there has been a game plan against Mahomes, it has been the general trend of, too high, force him to be patient. He's not as patient as, like, one of Tom Brady's greatest strengths was always patience. That guy would be perfectly happy to throw the ball 60 times for 5 yards a pop if that was the most effective way of winning the game. And he never got impatient doing that, which is remarkable because almost every other quarterback snaps. They reach a point where they get so frustrated doing that, they take a shot, and the shot is what kills you because you make a mistake, and even if it's not a turnover, you just don't complete the pass, and now you're behind the chains, and the drive sputters out. Brady and Manning actually were incredibly patient with those types of games. Mahomes is good at it, but I don't think he's as patient, and he clearly gets frustrated when he can't make those big plays. And he's done a good job, I think, of modifying that element of his behavior and his game in recent years because he's had to. But now I think it's making it even more frustrating because he's not as efficient doing it as he used to be. So now he knows that if they're going to make a mistake, if somebody drops a ball, if somebody, if there's an error in there somewhere, if there's a holding call, I think he's acutely aware now of how much of a problem that is to the offense, so it makes him want to push a bit more and force things and make more mistakes than he used to, and the whole thing is sort of spiraling. So I think it's an issue, and you're right, it might not resolve itself this year. The other element of this game I think that's fun to watch is both pass rushes. Trey Hendrickson going up against the left side of that Kansas City offensive line.
Wanye.
Yeah, that feels like a problem. But equally, the same thing I think is true on the other side. You go to Kansas City's defense, they have pass rushers that can cause problems.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think even just back to the Chiefs offense again too, Lou Anarumo and the Bengals defense, and they've had some success over the last few years. Of course, Joe Burrow was the quarterback. It coincided with that, but Anarumo's done a really nice job mixing things up schematically against Mahomes and the Chiefs. So even though I don't think they have the horses in the last couple this year versus last couple years, that's going to be an interesting matchup. I also wonder how much, like Kansas City and Andy Reid, they never like to rely on the run. I wonder how much they just take that pressure off Mahomes and just try to run the ball a little bit more and actually lean on that more than they ever had. One last thing I'll add too, and I saw a graphic on this, but I knew it kind of mentally. Every team the Chiefs have played the last few weeks have had extra rest coming in. They had the Raiders coming off of a Thursday night game, so they had extra couple days. They had the Patriots coming off a Thursday night game, had an extra couple days. I think they had the Bills off a bye. This is the first time that's actually back to somewhat normal. Bengals have an extra day because they played on Saturday, and the Chiefs played on Monday, so I guess it's still in effect this week. But just something to keep an eye on for this week. I do wonder if Browning can get back to form, right? He's been great against non-Steelers teams. So if he can get back to form, I think Cincinnati can make this a game. But I think I'm going Chiefs here to cover the 7 and bounce back from Christmas disaster.
I think the Chiefs will be better, but I'm going to go with the Bengals keeping it within 7.
All right.